Have you ever wondered how your favorite Capcom characters spend their days off? Like, do Morgan, Ryu, and Tessa do normal everyday things like go out for a drink? How about seeing these characters in a chibi art style? Well then, you might be in luck because do I have the game for you. Released in 1997, Super Gem Fighter Minimix, or Pocket Fighter in Japan, is this adorable little Capcom crossover game that is almost like a Capcom All-Stars-esque game now that I think about it. Originally a spin-off of Super Puzzle Fighter 2 Turbo, Gem Fighter took the cute and zany graphics from Puzzle Fighter, combined it with fighting game controls, and created these amazingly compact stages that ooze with charm. For example, just look at the logo for this game. It is so full of detail. You can see Chun-Li's wristlet to the left of the word gem, what I presume to be Chun-Li's peace signs inside of the pattern of the G in gem, Hisenko's talisman as the I in fighter, Zangief's body and pants in the R, a boxing glove as the G, and so on. A very brief overview of the mechanics is that Gem Fighter's gameplay consists of 3 main buttons: punch, kick, and special, and each character has 3 unique special moves indicated by the bottom of the screen. And can I just say, the animations and sounds for the attacks in this game are so cute, just look at some of them. Throughout the match, characters can collect gems to power up their special moves, finding them in treasure chests or by damaging opponents. There are also items, which can be found in treasure chests as well, or dropped by item carriers, which can then be thrown at your opponent. For this video, we're going to be going through all the key details in the Gem Fighter stages. So, with that being said, let's get straight into our first stage and grab a drink with our little Capcom pals. The first stage is called Bar and is presumably run by DJ from Street Fighter, who is bartending in the center of the stage. The bar might also be called Maximum since this is what's written in the sign above. The word Maximum here is a reference to DJ's pants. When creating DJ, Capcom chose this specific word since it could be mirrored back and forward the same way regardless of what side DJ was on. Whereas, for example, Sagat's eye patch has to change depending on if he's on the left or on the right side. So starting on the right side of the stage, we also see a cashier near what I think is the exit of the bar, since the sign above presumably says, "Thank you." The cashier is June from Star Gladiator, a talented rhythmic gymnast. On the balcony above her, we also see a collection of Street Fighter baddies, M. Bison, who will be mentioned a lot in this video, Sagat, and Adon, Sagat's disciple. As for the man wearing the sombrero, I'm not entirely sure who this is, but based on what I found, he could be a character from a long-forgotten game called Pang 3, which is kind of a shooter. But I don't know much about this game, so if you happen to know who this is or if I'm wrong, please let me know. Moving to the left, Huitzel from Darkstalkers is holding a flower pot, though this could just be a statue of him since he's not moving. Next to Huitzel is Ihanda at the bar, wearing a robe or yukata, and DJ himself, finger gunning like mad behind the bar. Cammy is watching as well, hopping up and down, and is presumably very excited about the fight. Equally excited is Guile, who seems very distracted as him and Charlie catch up in the back. He looks like he's hiding his excitement and cracking a smile every time he bounces in his seat, which is a cute little touch. There is also a sign above the two that says, "Cool." Nice. On the left side of the stage, we can also see Birdie, who is pretty upset and seems to be having a bit of hair trouble. Him being in the bathroom might be a reference to his hilariously awful stage in Street Fighter Alpha 2, which is just a bathroom. Finally, on the upper balcony, we also see Guy taking a snooze and Rose and Relento looking down at the fight. As for the music, I think it serves its purpose of setting the mood, but considering that this is a bar where a fight is about to go down, I do wish it was a little bit more energetic and loud. But in general, I do like the atmosphere of the stage. It's a pretty bumpin' bar, just like DJ's stage in Street Fighter 2, and seems like it'd just be a fun place to hang out. Next is Toy House, which takes place outside a toy shop during the holiday season. On the right side, we can see some Darkstalker characters, with BB Hood holding John Talbane hostage. Her foot and gun is on Talbane's head, and he's waving a little white flag. Above them, we can see Dawson's face on a sign that says Toys. Next to that, there is also something that looks like it could be another face on the left, but if so, I'm not sure who this is. I'm getting Mega Man Legends vibes, but I have no evidence to support this. So again, if you happen to know, please drop it down in the comments. Inside the toy store display, we see a giant Chun-Li plush, or maybe cutout, in the windowsill, with Balrog intensely staring at it. There is also this cute frog sprawled out on the window and some snowmen, which might be a reference to Sasquatch's wind animation from Darkstalkers who come out and celebrate with him. There's also some sort of bug-eyed fish-looking thing near Chun-Li's foot, but I'm not sure if this is a reference. In the middle of the display, you can also see Darkstalker's Hisenko riding a sleigh driven by pandas. And in front of the shop, Anita is holding a headless doll, looking scared and lost, with Donovan on the far left bridge seemingly looking for her, but not knowing she's just right around the corner. Behind Donovan is also Jin's robot from Cyberbots called Blodia wearing a Santa hat. In the left corner, we see a child version of Cammy pointing at a cardboard sign of Dr. Bilstein from Plasma Sword, presumably with her dad, M. Bison, which is just kind of weird considering the history between the two. She looks much younger than in the bar stage we just discussed, so I'm not entirely sure if maybe she's supposed to be an adult in this scene, which would also make it kind of weird, or maybe this is an alternative time period or universe, but who knows, I might just be overthinking it. My tangent aside, you can also see above M. Bison's head the famous Capcom POW, which has appeared in the 1942 series and Sansan. Nearby is a holographic version of June from Plasma Sword in front of a neon sign that also says Plasma Sword, just in case you didn't get the reference. In contrast, an easily missed detail is that this building is designed to look like a cake. Above the Plasma Sword sign, you can see some whipped cream, strawberries, and a candle. Way at the top of the building, you can also see a Shadaloo sign with quite the sale going on, 50% off to be exact. To the right of the sign, there is a dinosaur called Rimgull, who is yet another Plasma Sword reference. The music in the stage is also not bad. It's a little bit generic, but it's fairly chill and it has a hint of holiday ambiance. It's stages like this that make me think Gem Fighter is a Christmas game, even though there's actually only a few winter-themed stages. But for some reason, I just associate this game with the holidays. The third stage is called Ski Site, which features a ski resort in the mountains by a large lake. Again, yet another winter-themed stage, but a totally different setting. Starting from the right, we see a strange-looking statue. This is from Bishimon's Darkstalkers 1 and 2 stages, though it might also be a cultural reference that I'm not aware of, or maybe a yokai of sorts. There's also a Shiba Inu by a doghouse, Bishimon slurping down on an endless string of noodles, and a nearby igloo, all three of which are references to Bishimon's Darkstalker stages. Sitting next to him is also fellow wannabe samurai, Sodam. Next to the samurai are some kids who might be a reference to something I'm not aware of, but they're rubbing the head of someone that suspiciously looks like Pyron buried in the snow. He's probably having a miserable time since he's normally on fire, and directly contrasts with M. Bison, who looks like he's having the time of his life in his third appearance so far. You can see him sliding in and out of frame while riding a sled. Further in the background, you can also see Yun and Yang from Street Fighter repeatedly jumping from a ramp on their snowboards. I'm personally a skier myself though, much like Vega on the left side of the screen, who seems to be having a bit of trouble with his skis there. It's no wonder, because I'd imagine the blades from his claws are really difficult to use as poles. And interestingly enough, he actually has 2 claws here instead of his usual 1. Finally, at the very top of the stage, we see Sasquatch quite literally hanging out on a stopped ski lift, with Balrog hanging out for dear life on a broken lift chair. Sasquatch's delighted expression here really makes me suspect that he might have caused this accident. Behind him, you can also see Oro taking a snooze in his sleeping bag while suspended on the lift wire. The music for the stage is pretty energetic, vaguely winter sounding, and fitting for this stage, though I do think it's slightly generic. In general though, I think the stage would be a really bougie resort that I'd love to visit. A lodge right in the mountains by a lake with some prefabricated igloos sounds amazing, but also a place that I probably can't afford. Taking a complete 180-degree turn in atmosphere, our next stage is Beach House. This stage is a collection of references to several different hot climate stages from Street Fighter. For example, the elephant that Dalsum is washing and his wife is sitting on top of is a reference to his stage in India. The giant snake that is eating Rikuo from Darkstalkers is a reference to Blanca's stage in Brazil. And also as a side note, I think it's really cute that we can see Rikuo's kid rooting for him to escape. And the lying Buddha statue way in the back on the right side is a nod to Sagat's Thailand stage. In the foreground on the right side of the stage, above the elephant, we can see two Sasquatches dangling on a tree, annoying the crap out of Mai Ling, a young martial artist from Red Earth. The Sasquatchers are likely trying to grab some bananas, and Mai Ling seems to not be having any of that. Moving to the left, we can see some sort of hut, likely an inner tube shop or ice cream shop, with Blanca standing inside. The nearby photographer is also a reference to Blanca's stage from Street Fighter 2. Further to the left, we also see Elena just hanging out, which is yet another nod to the hot weather theme since her stage is in Kenya. She's dressed very accordingly for the weather and treating herself to some ice cream or maybe shaved ice. As far as the music goes, the song is energetic but not really super tropical sounding despite the synthesized steel drum sound, which is kind of a missed opportunity since I think this could have really contrasted nicely with some of the more holiday themed songs in the soundtrack. I also think that while normally this would be a place that I'd be down to visit, I'd rather avoid the giant snake, so I'm going to give this stage a hard pass. Next up is Chinatown. This is likely a Chinatown in Japan since you can see Capcom's headquarters in the background past the trees. It could possibly be China itself, but I doubt it since in China you usually don't see this kind of architecture, which was actually invented in San Francisco after the 1906 earthquake. The Chinese Americans living in Chinatown at the time invented this sort of pseudo-Chinese architecture in order to attract people to the area as a tourist attraction. But my tangent on architecture aside, we can also see some Chinese letters on the sign to the right that roughly translates to the phrase friendly affection or fraternal love, which might make a lot of sense because all the characters on this stage are dudes eating and bonding over noodles. Though this might not be the case for Charlie, who's sitting by himself in the corner. Underneath that same sign, we can also occasionally see a cycling panda, which could be a passing reference to the cyclist from Chun-Li's China stage. Also underneath the sign, we see Adon holding a dragon head used in a traditional dragon dance, which is often seen during festivals and holidays at your local Chinatown. Continuing to the left, we see a large sign above the restaurant that translates to Gen's restaurant. Gen himself is about to cut off the head of a duck on the left side of the stage, presumably cooking for all of his hungry customers, such as Bishiman, who is eating noodles with his fellow Darkstalker Victor. We also see Sodam again and M. Bison, who is making yet another appearance along with Birdie. Meanwhile, Rolento is crawling along the floor, sneaking in some bowls. And above the restaurant, we also see a floating Dalsum and a sitting Fei Long. Behind this group of characters, there also seems to be some sort of flame floating in the background. This could be a reference to one of Bishiman's special moves, or perhaps a reference to Pyron, or maybe Bison's Psycho Energy, but I can't say for sure. Finally, on the left is John Talbane sneaking in a bite of a giant roast pig, and in the shadows to the left, Guy from Final Fight. The stage music is vaguely Asian sounding, and I do appreciate the effort that the composers put in to make it sound stage appropriate, though I think it might have been cooler to see a remix of Chun-Li's theme, for example, instead. Overall though, I really like the cameos and stage song a lot, and can I just say that I would love to have some roast duck and noodles made by Gen. So far, pretty much every stage that we've seen has had some sort of reference to food, and you can really see the care and attention put into this game just by looking at the variety of dishes. The next stage is Tess's Room, and even though I've never played Red Earth before, this is probably my favorite stage from an aesthetic point of view. Tess's Room is predictably named after Tessa from Red Earth, who is the only playable character from the series of Minimix. Sleeping on the bed to the right, you can see a ghost, which is a nod to one of Tessa's attacks in Red Earth. Standing on the bookshelf above the ghost, we also see a penguin in a witch hat, which is actually Tessa transformed by Red Earth's final boss. Think and Curious' move from Darkstalkers, where everyone gets turned into a cute critter. There's also this huge fireplace in the center of the stage that kind of looks like a face. Leo from Red Earth is sitting directly in front while cleaning his sword, taking a nap, occasionally dozing off and drooling. To the right, you can also see Felicia taking a little cat nap curled out front. But if you actually pick Felicia on the character select screen, she disappears from the background in the stage, which I think is a cute little touch. Similarly, to the left of the fire, you can see Lilith sitting in the windowsill, but when you pick Morgan, she disappears since Morgan and Lilith are the same person. In other words, depending on the characters you pick, this stage can turn from having 3 people hanging out and having a party to just Leo by himself. Also to the left of the fireplace in the background is Hisenko's panda, who's just flying around. And to the far left is this pot with a sort of dopey looking smile, which I don't think is a reference to anything in particular, but I just wanted to point it out because I think it's really cute. There's also a drawing of one of Red Earth's bosses, Hauser the dinosaur, really high up on the ceiling, which is slightly obscured by the character health bars. As far as the music goes, this stage has my favorite song in the game. It starts off sounding kind of mysterious, then the synth comes in, you hear the added percussion in the background, and overall it just sounds so welcoming and comfy. This would be a place where I would just curl up and take a nap, hang out, and probably not fight in at all. The word Makai is a direct reference to Darkstalkers and is a demon world inhabited by supernatural beings. In the lore of the game, Makai is ruled by 3 noble families, 2 of which include the, excuse me if I'm mispronouncing this, the Ainsland family, led by Morrigan's father and later Morrigan herself, and the Doma family, led by Jeddah. Right off the bat, we can see that the most prominent feature of the stage is the castle, Ainsland Castle, in the background, with a very distinctive giant face on the side. Moving to the foreground, starting from the right, we first see a goofy-looking guy, likely one of Morrigan's retainers, sitting on a carriage drawn by pigs. Behind the pigs, there's also this very precarious-looking cliff, with John Talbane howling at a huge full moon. There's also a large fountain with some statues on top, and a skeleton peeking over the fountain rim. This is a direct reference to another Morrigan stage in Darkstalkers. I also really like this stage's song. In particular, I like the electric guitar with its deeper notes and the funky synth. Overall, if I had to rate the stage on a scale of 1 to 10, with 10 being a place that I would kill to visit, this gets a solid 7.5. In particular, I really like the gradient color of the moon and the huge looming sculptures. On the flip side, the Inside Makai stage presumably takes place inside the castle from the Outside Makai stage, but this is hard to say for sure. Either way, what we do know is that this stage takes place in a castle where you can see a laughing Dimitri overseeing his servants move stuff inside. One hypothesis is that this could be Dimitri moving into Morrigan's castle after taking it over, since from a lore perspective, he wants to become the ruler of Makai. Starting from the right side of the stage, there is a carriage drawn by some sort of demon horse. Assuming Inside and Outside Makai take place in the same area, perhaps this horse is part of the same carriage line as Morrigan's retainer. To the left, we can also see a coffin, which is the Iron Maiden used by Donovan and Darkstalkers, as well as some of Dimitri's other servants, which include several zombies and a purple-haired girl, who is a reference to a Dimitri stage in Darkstalkers, who is not helping out at all. There are also 3 other dancer girls with fans who are a reference to another Dimitri stage. To the left of the servants, the Midnight Bliss version of Jeddah is hanging out over the rolled carpet. For a little bit of context, Midnight Bliss is a move where Dimitri sucks his opponent's blood, turning male characters into women and women into something else. On occasion, you might also see Dimitri disappear from the balcony and reappear below while sliding across the waxed floor. And speaking of the waxed floor, an interesting detail here is that most of the characters on screen have a reflection, except for the purple-haired girl, who is a vampire, and the Midnight Bliss version of Jeddah. Since we don't see a reflection for the vampire girl, you could assume that it's missing because she's a vampire, but Dimitri is also a vampire and we see his reflection on the floor. It could be that maybe the purple-haired girl and Jetta's reflections are being covered by the carpet and the couch, but who knows? As for the stage music, I personally would have loved to hear something that sounded a little bit more spooky, but overall I still really like it a lot. I think the song starts off really strong with some funky synth and an interesting melody, but I do feel like it becomes a little bit more generic as the song progresses. However, I think the concept for this stage is super unique. While you might expect Dimitri's castle stage to be him taking a bath or hanging out with some ladies, instead you see him sliding across the floor and moving into a castle. It's something so mundane, which creates this contrast in expectations that's really fresh. Our final stage is a bit of a weird one. It doesn't really have an official name and is referred to as the mode you select, called Running Battle. It's kind of like a survival mode where you battle on different parts of a huge stage, moving from left to right, which finally culminates in a final battle against Akuma. You might sometimes encounter parts of the stage in arcade mode, but for the most part, it shows up mainly in Running Battle mode and only on the Sega Saturn and PlayStation versions of this game. In total, there are 12 different sections of the stage, featuring a large expansive desert filled to the brim with cameos. With that being said, let's get straight into it since we have a lot to discuss. Starting from the far left, from Breath of Fire 3, there's a young Ryu, young Nina, and Peko, as well as Kumiko from Quiz Nanero Dreams on the far right. I don't really know anything about these games, so if there's anything I'm missing here, please let me know. Also, the statues in the sand may be related to Anacharis from Darkstalkers. Further right, we see the Player 1 character from Quiz Nanero Dreams talking with Megumi while Momoko spies on them from behind. Towards the entrance, there is a camel standing out front, and we also see Mega Man from Mega Man Legends, aka Mega Man Walnut, with Roll on his right. Inside the building, you can see a poster with Felicia on it that says Cat. I think this is a cute detail that shows how she's trying to make it big as a performer. Nearby, we also see Rose and Oro running a fortune teller booth who seem kind of bummed out. It could be that Rose is upset because she has no business, or the fact that she's sitting next to stinky old man Oro. And further on, we also see the classic series version of Mega Man Roll and Rush. As you leave the building, the stage has transitioned to night, and we see Princess Devilotte and her minions from Cyberbots running a hot towel booth with her merch in the background, as well as a Servbot and Tronbon standing nearby. Then we see Mega Man from the X continuity, Iris from X4, and Zero. You may recognize this version of Iris from this famous clip.
Ah! No, this isn't happening! There's no reason for me to go on. What? What am I fighting for?
Finally, we see Nina and Ryu from Breath of Fire 3 again, but this time as adults, along with Momo and a sleeping Peko, thus concluding this very long stage. As for the music, the song is called Never Give Up by Isao Abe. I think the song is very peppy and fitting, but not super memorable to me, which kind of summarizes my overall thoughts on the stage. I'm not too familiar with Breath of Fire or Quiz Nanero Dreams, but it's good to see Capcom reference other non-fighting game series from their catalog, especially Mega Man. I think this is a very creative stage that has a lot of interesting cameos and cool character designs. I hope that I was able to unpack some of the dense references in this game for you all. This was definitely a longer video for me, but one I really wanted to do since I love how adorable this game is and the passion that you can see the developers put into it. I really wish that more games weren't afraid to take on a more sort of cutesy aesthetic in the vein of SNK Gal Fighters and them's fighting herds. I hope you all enjoyed this video. As always, my Instagram and Twitter are linked in the description if you want to connect elsewhere. But anyways, if you enjoyed this video, please like, rate, and subscribe, and I'll see y'all in the next one.